Ms. Nguyen, you are one of the experts that wrote the German-French proposal for reforms of European Union. For how long have you been working on the issue? How many meetings did you had?
Yes, so our Franco-German group on EU institutional reform was launched at the end of January. So for 8 months, we worked on this issue, and we met at least every 2 weeks actually on Zoom to discuss the topic. And in addition, we also had a number of full-day meetings in person and a few meetings actually in smaller subgroups as well. So quite often, I would say.
The document is precise and technical, confirming that the EU and the candidates need to do their homework to make enlargement possible till 2030. The question is, if there are no reforms in the European Union, no enlargement, even if the work is completed by the candidate states?
So I think two things here. Our date 2030 is not meant as a deadline, but more a date by which indeed both candidate countries and the EU make a mutual commitment to try to be enlargement ready. And we think that indeed enlargement has to go in hand with reforms. But of course, the question of which reforms is now the big question that is being discussed. And I think the good thing that it is already happening. And I would rather formulate it this way, that enlargement actually can now be the catalyst that leads to reforms for the European Union.
The idea of a qualified majority instead of unanimity is old, but at the same time is a weapon for some of the member states for their own policies. Have you identified which of the countries would support or benefit the most from this document, and which one would be maybe hard nuts to crack, so they would give up on their rights for veto?
Indeed, so the introduction of qualified majority voting is not a new idea, and it is of course one that is very sensitive to especially smaller member states who fear a domination of the bigger member states and also the loss of protection of their vital national interests, which is why to alleviate these concerns, we propose two additional things beyond just introducing QMV. So we propose the introduction of a sovereignty safety net, which would allow member states to transfer questions of vital national interest to the heads of states and governments to discuss. And secondly, we also propose a recalculation of the shares under qualified majority voting to make it more favorable towards smaller member states, the ones who are most likely to oppose. And that would make it more difficult, for example, for France and Germany as bigger member states to form a blocking minority.
Can you connect Europe in speed with the French idea of European Union in concentric circles that proposed President Macron a couple of years ago? How can you connect this with the new approach of the Western Balkans countries for more integration before membership for maybe the good students?
I think it is important to stress with the 4 circles we have in the report that these were a result of a reflection of how to further integrate within the European Union. So what to do if countries or member states do not want to be further integrated in the EU? Can we offer them alternatives? And if so, where do we draw the boundary when it comes to respect for the rule of law? And for us, that was the internal market. But the circles were not a reflection of our discussion concerning enlargement accession processes as such, even though you are right that there are overlaps. And one could definitely think about ways how the two processes could be matched. But this was not something that we entirely spelled out yet in our work, because enlargement was outside of our mandate or the accession processes itself.
The countries with bilateral problems have no place in European Union. Was North Macedonia maybe an example for you in the preparation of the report, considering that it has been facing problems with its neighbors more than 2 decades and also changed the name of the state?
Yes, so we discussed the principles of accession with all candidate countries alike in mind.
So did you discuss about us maybe? Did you mention us?
Yes.
Yes. The figure of 751 MPA is retained in the European Parliament, even if EU in future will be increased with 35 members. Why?
Because the European Parliament is actually already very big, one of the largest parliamentary assemblies in the world, which can make deliberation and work very difficult. And an even larger parliament would only increase the problem, which is why we recommend to actually stick to the 751 members, so that the EP can remain workable also in the future.
Yeah. The document introduces the idea of, like I said, Europe in different speeds. Why should the candidate states be more optimistic about this document? Because we have seen so many documents in the past decades, in the past years, but none of them is making the process more speed than it is at the moment and results.
I think what we really can see also after our report was published was that there is a genuine interest in the debate. So the debate is really happening, and it is a very serious one also today at Granada with the European leaders. And I think this is an important sign that the debate and the question of reforming and enlarging is being taken very seriously. And it is now important that we continue this debate, both at the level of governments and the citizens.
It seems that most of the countries are dubious on the possibility to implement it and do not support it, maybe. What will happen now? Will you be refining it further in future?
Yes, we will not exclude the refining, but for now our work is done. And of course, this report is not a blueprint for how the reform should happen or enlargement should happen, but how we see it is one of many contributions to the debate that is currently happening and feeding into the debate. And we look forward to all the other contributions that are about to come and that will also be discussed in December at the European Council meeting when it comes to enlargement.
My final question is, what is your message for our country and the other candidate country who are hoping to be part of European Union in future?
That enlargement is really now a top priority in the EU, and that the debate is being taken very seriously, and that we now have to get started on the homework, on both sides, in the candidate countries and definitely also on the European Union side.